welcome to the Deep Dive. We've gathered quite a stack of material for you today. Think articles, reports, newsletters, mostly from around June 12th, 2025. And our goal, really, is to dig through all of it, pull out the most interesting bits, and give you a quick, concentrated look at what's new, what's happening in tech, gadgets, and some, well, pretty futuristic developments.
Exactly. It's like getting the highlights, but with the why it matters part baked in.
Yeah, cutting through the noise.
And these sources, they paint a really interesting picture. You've got this super high-end stuff, maybe enterprise level, and then right alongside it, massive consumer hits. It's quite the range.
Okay, let's dive in then, starting with something that feels very sci-fi, but it's apparently getting real. We saw reports about Google Beam.
Ah, yes, Google Beam.
Yeah.
Which is essentially the next generation of Project Starline, that 3D video conferencing tech.
Right, the one that makes it feel like the other person is actually in the room with you.
Exactly that. Trying to really bridge that gap in remote communication, make it feel more present.
And HP's involved now. They're actually releasing hardware for it.
That's the news, yeah. HP unveiled their first setup using this tech. It's called the HP Dimension, expected later this year.
Okay. The hardware exists, but the price. I saw the number and wow.
Yeah. Wow, it's about right. The figures we saw were around $24,999 for that initial setup. Comes with a big 65-inch display.
$25,000.
Right. And interestingly, it apparently also handles regular 2D calls, Zoom, Google Meet, that kind of thing.
Okay, but here's the kicker, right? The extra cost.
Yeah, this is crucial because that 3D magic needs some serious cloud processing. You also need a separate Google Beam license. And the price for that hasn't even been announced yet.
So nearly 25 grand for the screen and hardware, plus an unknown, probably ongoing license fee. That tells you a lot about who this is for, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, this isn't landing in your living room anytime soon, or even most small businesses, I'd guess.
Definitely enterprise, high-end enterprise.
Right. It signals that Google and HP think some companies will pay a very, very high premium for that feeling of presence in meetings. And it's this model too expensive box plus ongoing service fee for the main feature. It's fascinating.
It really is. Selling an experience, not just a product.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's one end of the tech scale. Bleeding edge, high cost. Let's swing completely the other way. Mass market success, Nintendo Switch 2 launch.
Yeah, the Switch 2, and what a launch. The numbers we saw were over 3.5 million units sold in just the first 4 days.
3.5 million in 4 days.
Yep, reportedly making it the fastest-selling home video game console launch ever.
That's just staggering scale. How did they pull that off? The reports mentioned supply, right? Unlike some console launches we remember.
Exactly. Two main things seem to be at play, according to the sources. First, Nintendo actually had enough stock. They were apparently ready for this huge demand, which, was obvious when pre-orders just vanished instantly.
So good planning on the supply chain side.
Seems like it. And second, there was some talk, some speculation, that maybe the threat of looming price hikes from tariffs pushed some people to buy now rather than wait. Added a bit of urgency.
So a combination of being prepared and maybe a bit of external market pressure helping things along. They're aiming for what, 15 million by March 2026?
That's the target mentioned, yeah. 15 million. Starting like this certainly helps get them on track.
It does raise that question, doesn't it? For these huge launches, how much is the product itself versus just, having enough on shelves and maybe catching a wave like those tariff concerns?
It's never just one thing, is it? Having the supply is baseline critical. You can't sell what isn't there. But then you layer on something like potential price increases, and suddenly consumers had a strong reason to act fast. Nintendo seems to have nailed the logistics and benefited from the timing.
Okay, so from virtual presence costing a fortune to a handheld console breaking records. Quite the contrast. All right, let's shift gears. Let's talk AI. It feels like it's everywhere now. And Meta is making some pretty big moves, according to these reports.
Oh, definitely. Meta's pushing hard. One report highlighted Mark Zuckerberg personally setting up a new superintelligence team, dedicated to that goal.
A superintelligence team.
Okay. And to get the best people, they're apparently throwing around some serious money. We saw mentions of 7, even potential 9-figure compensation packages to attract top AI researchers.
7 to 9 figures.
Yeah.
For researchers. That's incredible. It really shows the scale of this AI talent war. Did the reports say why Zuck is getting so involved personally?
Well, the suggestion seems to be he's maybe been frustrated with how fast Meta's AI work has been progressing compared to others, so he's getting more directly involved, hands-on to try and speed things up.
Makes sense. More direct leadership focus.
And it's not just hiring. They're also pushing on the technical front. We saw details about something called VJPA-2 being released by Meta.
EJPOW2. Okay, what does it do? Sounds technical.
It is a bit, yeah. Think of it as a new kind of AI model. A visual world model, they called it. The aim is to help AI understand the physical world better, sort of like how we do.
How things move and interact.
Exactly. By just watching videos, apparently, without needing tons of labels. It's about improving the AI's physical reasoning. They also put out new benchmarks to test how well AI understands real-world videos.
Okay, so they're trying to vacuum up the top talent and advance the fundamental science of how AI perceives the world, covering both bases.
Seems that way, investing in the long game, the foundational stuff, but also things that could lead to practical applications down the line, maybe in VR or robotics, who knows?
Right. Speaking of more immediate applications, we also saw news about a new browser. From the browser company, the folks behind Arc, something called Dia.
Yep, Dia, billed as an AI-first browser. And what makes it AI-first, according to the reports, is putting the AI right into the URL bar.
Into the URL bar. How does that work?
Apparently, you can use natural language, just type questions or commands to, say, search across your open tabs or get it to draft some text based on what you're looking at, or even generate code snippets right there.
That could really change how you interact with information online. But wait, did they just launch Arc not that long ago? Why the pivot to Dia?
Good question. The reporting suggested they kind of acknowledged Arc, while cool, was maybe a bit too complex for broad appeal. So with Dia, they're betting that embedding the AI directly is the way to go mainstream.
Trying to lure people away from constantly switching between their browser and, like, ChatGPT or other AI tools.
Exactly. Consolidate that workflow. Make AI just part of browsing, not a separate stop.
Makes sense, right?
Yeah.
As AI gets more common.
It does. And just to underline how AI is spreading, there was this really unexpected collaboration mentioned. Mattel, Barbie teaming up with OpenAI.
Yeah, that one definitely stood out. Details are apparently pretty thin right now. The sources just say they expect some kind of first AI-powered product later this year.
Wow. Toys.
It's just wild, isn't it? The sheer breadth. From huge research labs working on foundational models to everyday tools like browsers and now potentially toys, AI is just weaving itself into everything. It really feels like it's becoming a fundamental layer. Okay, let's switch tracks again. Transportation tech, how we get around. Tesla's robotaxi plans, saw some updates there.
Right. Reports mentioned a tentative launch date, June 22nd, for the service starting in Austin, Texas.
Tentative being the key word, I imagine.
Absolutely. And Elon Musk apparently mentioned the first driverless customer trip, factory to home, is sort of penciled in for his birthday, June 28th. Again, tentatively.
So lots of caveats. Safety must be the absolute priority driving any delays.
You'd have to assume so. Safety was stressed in the reports, and this initial rollout sounds quite small scale, like 10 to 20 robotaxis maybe?
Okay, not flooding the streets on day one.
No, and operating within specific geofence zones, too. Plus, and this is important, they'll have remote employees monitoring the fleet.
Ah, so human oversight is still very much part of the equation, even if they're not in the car.
Exactly. It shows this is a very careful, phased approach, which makes sense for something this complex, right? Rolling out autonomous tech.
Definitely. Now, contrasting that future vision, there was also this slightly surprising detail about current automated rides. Waymo rides reportedly cost more than taking an Uber or Lyft right now.
Yeah, that finding kind of goes against the grain, doesn't it? The whole idea was automation would eventually make rides cheaper.
So why are people apparently paying more for Waymo? Did the report speculate?
There was some speculation mentioned. Maybe it's just the novelty, riding in a car with no driver. Or perhaps people actually prefer being alone in the car, no small talk, and are willing to pay a bit extra for that experience.
Interesting psychological factors at play, possibly, beyond just cost. Okay, and one more quick transport gadget mentioned, the Infinite Machine Alto.
Ah, yeah, the Alto. Described as a seated scooter, coming later this year, around $3,495.
A seated scooter.
Yeah. Apparently has about a 40-mile range, and it's modular. You can add attachments, like they mentioned a child carrier.
Okay, a seated scooter you can put your kid on that's specific.
It's definitely carving out a niche. But it shows there's still innovation happening in just, personal urban mobility, beyond the usual suspects.
For sure. So looking back at this whole collection of updates from mid-June,
Yeah.
it's quite a mix. We've got super high-end 3D video calls trying to replicate presence.
Right, versus a games console smashing sales records.
We saw huge AI investments and talent wars at places like Meta, fundamental research,
And then AI actually showing up in browsers, maybe even toys soon.
and then the slow, careful rollout of robotaxis alongside things like Waymo, costing more than traditional ride shares, and, well, seated scooters.
It's a diverse snapshot, but you can see the threads, right? The pace of innovation isn't slowing down. AI is definitely moving out of the purely research phase and into products and workflows we'll actually use.
Yeah, becoming more tangible.
And hardware keeps surprising us. Sometimes it's incredibly expensive and niche, other times it achieves just massive, rapid adoption, often driven by more than just the tech itself.
That interplay is fascinating, between the cutting edge and what actually scales. So, for you listening, which of these developments really jumped out? Was it the price of feeling present with Google Beam? Or maybe the speed of that Switch 2 launch?
Or perhaps the sheer scale of the AI investment, or the idea of AI becoming part of your browser or your kids' toys.
Lots to think about.
And maybe a final thought to chew on, just looking at all this. Consider that contrast again. You've got Google Beam, super expensive, specialized. You've got Meta pouring maybe billions into AI research labs. Then boom, Nintendo sells millions of consoles in days. Or think about how fast AI seems to be moving from those labs into everyday things like browsers. What does that tell us about the different ways technology actually reaches us? And what makes one path lead to, explosive success versus maybe slower, more niche adoption?
Really interesting questions. Well, that's our deep dive for today. Thanks for joining us. Keep an eye on these trends. It feels like things are moving fast.